This is CNN Breaking News.
A payback has begun. The U.S. government is retaliating over Russia's hacking of the U.S. election. In an unprecedented step, the Obama administration has just named names of those believed to be responsible. 6 Russians and 5 entities, including Russia's main intelligence body, now facing sanctions. This as Obama orders 35 Russian operatives to leave the United States, and they have to do so within 72 hours. The president also announcing it is shutting down 2 Russian compounds here in the U.S. Russia will now fall victim to expanded sanctions, diplomatic measures, and later covert actions. Russia warning it will respond to any hostile new steps.
Victory 15 is in fact a project of a bigger organization called One Voice, which is based in the United States and has branches in some countries in Europe. And they list a number of partners. It's somewhat ambiguous. Their funding is ambiguous, but they list a number of partners which are problematic and need to be at least reported. The State Department is listed as a partner. We don't know what the term partner actually means, and that's part of the problem here. There's a problem in the NGO world in general about often not being transparent and having relationships with funders which need to be explored and presented to the public in more detail, particularly when it involves elections. So in this case, in addition, on the One Voice website, you see partners that include the New Israel Fund and J Street and the U.S. State Department and many, many other organizations. There are 20 or 30 partners listed there. And if they are, in fact, in some way funding this Victory 15 framework, which is clearly a framework to defeat Prime Minister Netanyahu, then according to Israeli election laws and according to democratic common sense and general rules of behavior, they need to put that information on the table so the public knows who's behind this.
There are reports, as you said, that the U.S. State Department is funding NGOs to remove Prime Minister Netanyahu from power. But you're also saying that this is not a new trend. What do you mean by that?
Well, the fact that the Israeli government or the Israeli democratic process is being a target for other governments, not just the United States, but particularly in Europe, has been a problem for a number of years. Now, in this particular case, the State Department issued a statement saying they have not funded One Voice since November 2014. They are not funding Victory 15. However, if they funded that framework in some way through November 2014, that's still a form of interfering with Israeli public policy, Israeli democracy, just as the case in Europe, when B'Tselem or all these other groups produce reports which are designed in part to implicate Israel in allegations of war crimes, and also will have an impact on the Israeli electoral process. That is also a form of interfering with the Israeli democratic process. Those are funded largely by European governments. So this whole area really needs to become much more publicly visible, and I think it is a good thing for the Electoral Commission under Judge Jobrin to look at this aspect in its broadest sense, but also in terms of if it's a court educated process, that would be good. And for the Attorney General, large-scale foreign funding, whether it's, particularly if it's governmental, needs to be available to the public as information in order to make informed choices, and then there are rules that have to be obeyed for everybody.
According to Israeli law, is it legal for American citizens to be giving tax-deductible donations to organizations who seek to influence the Israeli elections?
The main aspect of Israeli law for nonprofits, including electoral campaigns, is transparency, especially if you're getting it from foreign governments. It has to be made public because there is a contradiction. You cannot be loyal to a part of a sovereign country and then also be involved in another country. That's a non-governmental organization is supposed to be non-governmental. And so those things are problematic. And in fact, there is, first of all, transparency. In the Israeli Electoral Commission website, you can download, any citizen can go and anybody can go and download. The problem is, last time I checked, it had not been updated for 2013 or 14 or the current electoral process.
Well, Prime Minister Putin also addressed US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, saying that she was too quick to criticize Russia's elections that were held on Sunday. He said that she did so without having listened listened to the words of the international observers who were there to monitor the elections, that she came out far too soon saying that these elections were neither fair nor free, without hearing what those international observers had to say. Now, with regards to international observers, Prime Minister Putin said that Russia was open to letting people look and observe these elections, but that they would not tolerate outside interference in Russia's domestic affairs.
Our partners shake us from time to time so that we don't forget who owns this planet, so that we know they have methods of pressure and influence on our country from within. When it comes to humanitarian or health issues, that's one thing. But when foreign money is being invested into internal political affairs, that should make us think. What's especially unacceptable is a flow of foreign money into the electoral process. It's absolutely unacceptable.
We need somebody to dig down into this story and figure out exactly what happened.
Another demand for answers from Georgia's Secretary of State Brian Kemp to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. On Thursday, we confirmed election agencies in West Virginia and Kentucky have also traced suspected cyber attacks on its networks in November to the same DHS IP address Kemp's office already linked to a massive, unauthorized vulnerability scan of his agency's firewall that same month.
So now this just raises more questions that haven't been answered about this, and continues to raise the alarms and the concern that I have.
Through an open records request, we got a hold of the results of a survey Kemp asked the National Association of Secretaries of State send to its members. West Virginia wrote back, this IP address did access our election night results on November 7, 2016. Kentucky responded, the same IP address did touch the Kentucky online voter registration system on one occasion, November 1st, 2016. In a letter this week, DHS Secretary Jay Johnson told Kemp the department sourced the mid-November activity in Georgia to a federal contractor conducting what he called normal internet searches on the Secretary of State's website. The problem for Kemp,
we haven't been able to recreate this the way they've explained it to us.
And Kemp told us DHS has yet to explain at least 9 other suspected network scans linked to DHS IP address over the last year on or around important primary and presidential election dates in Georgia. Kemp's call for answers amplified now by the National Association of Secretaries of State. The main challenge,